It's Wednesday, July 27th, and this is the first 28storms.com tropical weather update for newly classified Tropical Storm Don located just to the north of the Yucatan Peninsula. We've been closely monitoring the system, and just within the last 10 minutes, it has been upgraded by the National Hurricane Center. Don is packing maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. It's moving off toward the west-northwest at 12 miles per hour, and steady strengthening is expected up until the time Don makes a landfall along the Texas coast toward the middle part of Friday afternoon. If you look at some of the forecast times from the Hurricane Center, they do expect a maximum intensity to peak at around 65 miles per hour, although they are noting in their discussion that in between those time intervals, this could become a little bit stronger. Now, if we notice the latest spaghetti model plots, there is still a lot of model divergence. We still have the extreme southern model outliers that take this straight into northern Mexico, just to the south of Brownsville. And then we still have a couple reliable models taking this almost as far north as the Houston-Galveston area. But the Hurricane Center is closely following the model consensus, and as of right now, the official forecast track takes Tropical Storm Don, or at least the center of Don, just to the north of Corpus Christi and to the south of Port Lavaca in and around the Rockport and Aransas Pass area. What you're now looking at are some of the intensity model forecast expectations, and two of the models the Hurricane Center likes to closely follow are the LGEM and D-SHIP, and both of these models are in fairly close agreement. They show a max intensity in about 48 hours at around 55 knots, and that equates to what the Hurricane Center is currently forecasting, a peak intensity near 55 knots, which is the equivalent of 65 miles per hour. Of course, to reach minimal hurricane category 1 status, it requires sustained winds of 74 miles per hour. So as of right now, the best model guidance, along with the official forecast from the Hurricane Center, are calling for this to max out as a moderate to upper end tropical storm, but it's really not that far off from a Category 1, and we can't entirely rule out that possibility. Now, one really cool feature from TropicalAtlantic.com is the ability to view the latest Hurricane Hunter observations, and we see that within the last couple hours, the hurricane hunters were able to find a closed surface circulation with a minimum central pressure of 1,001 millibars, and they also found minimum tropical storm force winds, and that was enough for the upgrade. For our viewers along the northern half of the Yucatan Peninsula, including Cozumel and Cancun, you guys can anticipate more shower and thunderstorm activity to be passing through your region within the next 12 to 24 hours, but thankfully this particular storm will be moving away from you, but the outer bands from the southern semicircle of the storm will be moving through once again over the next 24 hours. In terms of overall organization, the hurricane hunters did find that some of the strongest winds were located a bit to the east of the center, but over the last 12 to 18 hours, we have seen a steady consolidation of the storm on visible and infrared satellite, and it looks like the center is not that far from some of the strongest convection on the latest enhanced infrared. On a more regional scale, if we look at the water vapor imagery, we see that there is an upper level low moving into mainland Mexico near Tampico, and that's helping to generate some slight westerly wind shear, which could be the reason why some of the strongest winds are displaced to the east of the center. But the saving grace for the storm will turn out to be the same upper low that's currently shearing it, because it will help protect this particular tropical cyclone from some of the strong low to mid-level easterly winds that will begin to kick in as they move around or pivot around the stronger mid to upper level ridge currently located over the central United States. So if anything, the storm is going to be battling some light to moderate easterly wind shear once it gets into the central and western Gulf of Mexico, but it should still be light enough to where we see steady intensification until Texas landfall. This water vapor image helps best portray the mid to upper level ridging located over the south central United States, as we can see around here. And this is the main protecting factor that will prevent this storm from recurving toward the north into states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or even Florida. And in fact, if this mid to upper level ridge were to remain in place, and it's also located in the low levels by the way, if this were to fully remain in place, there's even a chance that this could go as far south as extreme northern Mexico. But some of the more dynamical model guidance is showing that the mid to upper level ridging will begin to move more toward the east coast of the United States within the next 48 hours, and that will set up a bit more of a weakness here along the Texas coast for this storm to move into. Now, just to give you some more timetables here, this is the GFS current thinking. It's taking it toward the Houston-Galveston coast at around 10 p.m. Friday right here. The CMC is taking it in around Corpus Christi at 7 p.m. Friday. No gaps is between Corpus Christi and Galveston by 7 p.m. Friday. The GFDL has 7 p.m. Friday near Houston-Galveston as well. And the H-Wharf is the slowest model with a landfall near Port Lavaca at 1 a.m. on Saturday. Now, it's unfortunate that the ECMWF is only available in 24-hour increments, but it's still taking it more toward the south here, closer to Brownsville. It did deviate a little bit closer to Corpus Christi during the morning run, but this afternoon's run has shifted back toward the south ever so slightly. Just to sum it all up, Tropical Storm Don should continue to steadily intensify as it heads on off toward the west-northwest and northwest, and it should continue to do so until it runs into lower Texas here. More than likely, Corpus Christi is the primary target for a landfall sometime late Friday afternoon into the early evening hours, but do not get caught up too much into the black line. Obviously, these tropical storms can be really disorganized, and even if they aren't, they're still fairly large. So this is going to be impacting much of the lower Texas coastline, and don't focus on exactly where the center is going to be making landfall. So all precautions need to be taken along much of the Texas coast, anywhere from Houston, Galveston, southward all the way down to Brownsville. And even for anyone still tuning in here in extreme northeast Mexico, I would still advise you to keep up with the weather, as there is still a chance that you could be directly impacted as well. Elsewhere, the tropical Atlantic is quiet today, but we are leaving July and will soon be entering the month of August, where activity really begins to ramp up. And we do have a tropical wave approaching the Lesser Antilles. As you can see, there's a lot of widespread disorganized shower and thunderstorm activity beginning to move into the eastern Caribbean, but upper level conditions are not that favorable. We have a lot of mid to upper level troughing over the central Caribbean and western Atlantic. But if we go back to the latest visible, keep an eye on this tropical wave that's now just beginning to enter the picture here between 30 and 35 degrees west. It already has a very weak cyclonic spin here, and some of the models are entertaining the possibility of this trying to develop in the medium range. The CMC model correctly identifies the location of the tropical wave, and the end result by day 6 is a minimal tropical storm passing through the Leeward Islands here, and that's something to keep a close watch on. This is in contrast to the 12Z GFS. It does depict the tropical wave, but the difference is that it really doesn't show much in the way of true tropical cyclone development through the period. What is especially interesting today is the 12Z ECMWF is also picking up on the wave, and it's also trying to allude that it will possibly develop into something. It's not as significant as what the Canadian is showing, but as you can see, especially by 48 hours, we have a developing area of low pressure along the tropical wave axis by days 3, 4, 5, and 6. As you can see, it's a little bit slower than the Canadian. The CMC had it already in the extreme northeast Caribbean at this time. The European still has it a little bit to the east of the Lesser Antilles, but about to move through. And if I finish this off between days 7 through 10, we see that it continues to move off in a general west-northwest direction. And before I leave you, don't forget to check out the main page of 28storms.com. We have a lot of satellite links that pertain directly to Tropical Storm Don, along with a variety of other information. Also, keep in mind that sometimes we'll post a discussion instead of a video, and you can find that further down the page here, just like the morning discussion posted several hours ago. And also, if you click on this top link, this is a new page from 28storms.com. It's a link that's dedicated only to the Tropical Storm Don landfall along the Texas coastline, and that'll point you in the right direction to get all of the latest news, especially when this thing begins to make landfall. We have all the latest news station links down there, along with more Texas-related weather information. So thanks again for tuning in to today's video. We'll have more extensive video analysis as this storm continues to track toward Texas.